Well, in 25 years of playing for England and Yorkshire, I've played with some very great cricketers. And first of all, I wanted a balanced team. I wanted a set of batsmen who complemented each other, some who were good, solid, steady players, some who had charisma and could play short so we get impetus into the innings. I wanted a great all-rounder and wicket-keeper, preferably who could bat. And I wanted some balance in the bowling. I wanted spinners as well as quick bowlers who can attack the opposition. But above all, the batsmen must make runs, because if they don't make enough runs, the bowlers can't bowl the opposition out. And I also thought about fielding and catching. We need people who can catch at slip so that we can take wickets. And then finally, it was very important to have a skipper, a captain, who could handle talented players, some of them difficult characters, but who had enough knowledge and enough know-how, who had a test record as a winner, who could handle all these players and pull the strings together so that we had a winning test match side.
It would have been unthinkable if we had not picked Geoffrey Boycott himself as one of the openers. Only Sunil Gavaskar and Alan Border have scored more runs in Test cricket. His batting record for England is second to none. He made more than 8,000 runs in 108 matches, averaging 47.72 an innings, and he scored 22 centuries.
I think what I'll be remembered for is a very fine technique. I was a classical player. I grew up on pitches in Yorkshire which usually seemed and turned a bit very reminiscent of Len Hutton's technique. We could play all kinds of bowlings, from spin, swing, seam. Didn't make any difference to fast bowling. The more difficult the surface was, the better our skill came to the fore. I think in some ways my return to Test match cricket at Trent Bridge was the hardest, the toughest, and perhaps the most testing of all innings I've ever had in my life, because I've been out of Test match cricket for 3 years. And then running Derek Randall out on his home ground didn't exactly help. I felt like digging myself a hole and jumping into it, you know, and there was a kind of deathly silence. I'd run out the local hero, yet at the same time, most of the Nottingham and Yorkshire people that were watching were hoping that I'd do well, so it kind of mixed feelings. And somehow I think I just held on by the skin of my teeth through test of character. And Alan Knott came in and helped me go on to make 100. I think that was the most testing time of my life. My 100 will be the one that'll live on long after I'm finished. Within 20 minutes of batting, I was fine, because right from the word go, the first ball hit right slap bang in the middle of the bat. And suddenly everything changed around. From being nervous, apprehensive, I felt absolute great. I felt it was just the day, this was it maybe. And everything just went fairly smoothly. There was a couple of hiccups really along the way, but on the whole, everybody in the ground was willing me on, and it just seemed as if I was destined for it. It was a magical day. Well, opening batsman was a problem a little bit. I thought about the players I'd played with, and Bob Barber came to mind. I played with him in the early 60s, and he was an interesting character. Almost Corinthian, amateur, played with a smile on his face and truly enjoyed it. He gave the ball a good old-fashioned thump right from the word go, laughed a lot, enjoyed his cricket. As a young boy just starting, I think I envied him in a little bit of a way, and he played one of the greatest test match innings I've ever seen in 25 years. At Sydney in 1965, he took the Australians apart for 180 runs, which is absolutely magic, and I was at the other end batting with him, and it was a privilege to see him play. Now, it was a very difficult decision leaving out Bob Barber. I thought about all the opening batsmen. I came down to John Edrich as my partner in test match cricket. A little gutsy left-hander who had a wonderful test record against Australia and West Indies, the two top sides in the world. He was different from me. Not only was he a left-hander, which helps in an opening partnership, he hit the ball in different areas from myself. His temperament was so phlegmatic that he could play and miss, and it not worry him, not bother him, play and miss twice in an over, and then clatter the ball for four. Well, I think the interesting thing about John Edrich was that if you looked at any part of his game, there was nothing special about it. It was the fact that he could bat all kinds of bowling, not specially well, but he could just bat them all quite well. But it was this temperament that nothing bothered him. I mean, leg spinners, he couldn't read them, the leg spinners and googlies very well, so he played for his wicket. He played bat and pad very sensibly, very cleverly, played for his wicket. And bowlers would pass his bat once, twice and over, and they would think they were getting him out, and just when they thought they probably had him ready to get out, he'd clatter them for a four. And he'd do the same the next over, and bowlers would get very frustrated, and when you were batting at the other end like me, you'd go down and talk to him and say, are you okay? He said, sure, why? What's the problem? As if nothing had happened, as if everything was hunky-dory, and in his mind it was, nothing ever bothered him. That was a great secret he had. Nothing really bothered him, and if it did, he never let on. I think John Edrich's 300 at Headingley will stand out because I was injured that match and I watched him on my home ground. I went to the dressing room, wished him all well, and I watched him bat. He made it look so easy and effortless. I mean, he played lots of shots in different ways, but there was nothing about him that said he was special. What was special about him, really, was his fine performances over a long period of time against all countries in the world, against all types of bowlers, all surfaces. He made runs, and he made them against the best teams, which were West Indies and Australia. His record against Australia is absolutely phenomenal. He has made runs all over the world against all countries. He makes big hundreds when he gets in, and I like his temperament, his savoir-faire, and I think he was a truly wonderful player. Well, there's never any doubt in my mind who I wanted to bat number 3 in my team. Ted Dexter. Lordly, imperious, He strode out to the wicket with a touch of arrogance, very upright and erect. And I wanted somebody who would take on the quick bowlers, because batting up front, when you've got a combination of opening batsmen who try and take the shine off, I wanted somebody who could not only play the quick bowlers well defensively, but he could take the attack to them. A wonderful, majestic player. I played with him when I was a kid, and at the other end, he sort of raised the goose pimples on the back of my neck with the power and precision of his batting.
Now it's Dexter in, Mackenzie bowling. Dexter's captaining England for the 26th time. Port to Dexter. But he was to stay safely through the first day, likewise Boycott.
Dexter, what I liked about him was his touch of arrogance when he walked out to the wicket. His head high, and he's an unusual character in that some days you knew that he somehow wasn't really there, he wasn't with it, as if he'd got out of the wrong side of the bed, and you'd be lucky if it lasted 10 minutes. And other days, in the dressing room, you could see that he was so determined to do well, and he'd march out to the wicket, really meaning to take the bowlers by the scruff of the neck. And when he did that, my goodness, he was a wonderful player. Ted's technique was first class. But what was suspect in Ted was not his temperament, was whether his mind was on the job. You could not tell from one day to the next whether he was really with you in spirit or just in body. Now, he would play with you, but whether his mind was actually fixed on the job in hand, you could never be sure until the morning of the match. But when he really was determined to get out there and bat his best, my goodness, he was a world-class player in any era, in any team, because he could dominate that. He was fearless against the quicks, and that's why I wanted him to bat number 3, because in world cricket today, you're bound to have a lot of quick bowlers around. If you can't play quick bowlers, which he could, you need the courage, the stature to stand up tall, play them, impress upon them that they're not going to force you back on the defensive all the time. And with people like Edrich and myself batting first, being able to knock the ball off in different areas, Ted would have the ability to come in, play sensibly for a while, then take the initiative away from the quick bowlers. Colin Cowdrey is an enigmatic player. He had the technique and ability to play any kind of bowling on any kind of surface. I've seen him play defensive, sensible innings for England. I've also seen him at his best when he's taking attacks apart. And he was too good a player not to be in my best England 11. Well, I picked Cowdrey at number 4 because I wanted a batsman who had the ability to play all types of bowlers, that if we lost a wicket or two early, that he could come in and whoever was bowling, left-arm seam, quick bowlers, spinners, he could handle it. He had the resources, he had the ability, the technique, the courage, everything about him. He could handle whatever was bowling at that particular time, whether we needed to attack or we needed to defend. Cowdrey could take hold of the game because he had the all-round skill to take charge and play well for us. Well, he's an enigma, really, because although he looked somewhat portly and large and looked a little cumbersome, he wasn't. He had such effortless, easy way of playing. He just timed the ball. He didn't have to smash it anywhere. He just eased it almost to the boundary, just eased it away in lovely timing. He would fluctuate from taking the bowling on and knocking them around the park, or to getting into moments where he'd play bat and pad defensively, hardly looking to score, and you would think, why is he doing this? A player of that great ability. And then he could take the quicks on, because he was a great hooker in his youth. And for a big bulky man, he just hooked the ball down easily, just cuffed it around. He hadn't a weakness in his game. He'd be my fielder for first slip, because he got a good pair of hands. He may look bulky, but anything in his arc, he usually caught a very, very high percentage of catches. And you've got to catch your catches to win Test matches. Ken Barrington was the most solid, reliable batsman I ever played with for England. At no time did he ever give his wicket away. It was much sought after by every Test country in the world. And it's nice to have a player who, when you're in trouble, you know you can count on. Wally Grout, the wicketkeeper for Australia, used to say that when Ken Barrington came to the wicket, it was like a man arriving with a Union Jack on his chest and his bat. And that's what I thought of Ken Barrington. If my life depended on it, I'd want him batting at the other end. I wanted Ken Barrington to shore up any real problem. And I always felt with Ken Barrington that if you got in trouble, 4 wickets down, Barrington was your last saving grace to get you out of trouble. Because I would know that over my dead body would you get him out. He had great concentration, ability to make big hundreds from defensive situations, and he could assess it and he could get you out of a hole. And people think of him only as a defensive player. He wasn't. He could play attacking innings when it was necessary. He was once dropped for being too slow, and so was I. And all I can say, it was the worst thing that England ever did to Ken Barrington or Geoffrey Boycott. Because today, it's not a matter of how slow or how quick you bat, it's a matter of how many runs you make. And Ken Barrington was a great player in his own era. Today, he was twice as good as what's playing for England. Batsman was the most difficult decision I've had to make. Tom Graveney or David Gower. Well, I wanted to pick Tom Graveney because he was my boyhood idol, because he has this lovely fluency, this graceful timing, very much like David Gower. He can play front foot or back foot. He's a big occasion player, got a good test match record. My heart said pick Tom Graveney. I was lucky enough to play with him years later for England, and I know what a truly great player he is, a big 100 maker, but sadly, I had to leave him out on balance to play David Gower, because you cannot let your professional judgment interfere with your personal life. Now, David Gower came into Test match cricket while I was already an established player. But I've marvelled at his sense of timing, the exquisite shots he could play with ease. And I wanted a player in my team who could do unpredictable things. He's a left-hander, which helps, so it gives me then two left-handers in my batting lineup with Edrich and himself. And also, I wanted a player down the order who, if the scene or stage was set, he could come in and take the bowling apart in a way that nobody else can. David Gower has the brilliance, the timing, the graceful ease of shot making that makes most players think, my goodness, I wish I could play shots like that. He can do extraordinary things with the ball. One day I stopped him in Perth when I was batting and finding batting very difficult for myself. And I said, I wish I could bat like you. And that was meant as a compliment, because he did make it look so effortlessly easy. David Gower's biggest enemy at batting is himself, because he gets himself out. And I think because he is so easy to him at times, that he then loses concentration, does something silly, and gets himself out. And that's why I say, batting for him he is his own worst enemy. And it's nice to have a player who's gifted, talented. Sometimes he doesn't know how good he is. And I know occasionally he can frustrate and annoy me as well as many others by getting himself out. But my goodness, he has played some wonderful innings for England. There was never any doubt who was going to be the all-rounder in my team. Ian Botham, a truly great cricketer in any era. He's one of my 3 favourite cricketers. He makes me laugh, and he also gives me great pleasure to play with. What I liked about him at his very best was his bowling. He was intimidating, aggressive, very quick, and nasty to batsmen, and that is an asset. And perhaps one of the great assets of all time he had was a knack of getting rid of not only top batsmen, but getting rid of tail-enders very, very quickly. The main thing about him, he's got huge shoulders, huge backside and big footballer's legs, which gave him a lot of power. He could bowl long, long spells, sustained, aggressive spells. Never seemed to tire in his pomp when he was young and strong. And allied to that, he had this wonderful slim waist, which allowed him to turn and bowl these wonderful, beautifully swinging outswingers. And this is what made him such a difficult bowler for even the best of batsmen. He was a lucky bowler. Now, I don't mean that frivolously. There is such a thing as luck. And sometimes he would put batsmen under intense pressure, bowling so well at them, so intimidating, so nasty and aggressive, that when he did bowl a bad ball, they would be so quick to try and pounce on it, they would make a mistake and get themselves out. And Both would laugh at this, he would play on it, and he knew he was a golden hour, that things just happened when he was bowling. And I also think that getting out tail-enders, which I mentioned before, was a great asset. He had a way of intimidating them. And once he'd given them 1 or 2 short balls in the ribs, around their ear holes, he'd pitch a couple up outside off stump, they'd have a little bit of a nibble at it, a little bit shy and a bit tentative, and they'd get themselves out, caught behind the wicket or by the wicket keeper. Great asset to have, intimidation of tail-enders. As a fielder, he was one of the most outstanding catchers of a cricket ball at slip that I've ever seen. He was very brave. He would stand nearer the bat than any fielder I've ever known in second slip position, and yet he would still catch it. It wasn't only intimidating and showy, he would catch it. He was a very brave catcher. Balls that come just in front of you on the half volley, he would go for them, sometimes hurt his hand, but it never stopped him going for the next ball that came. I saw him drop very few because his hands were very smooth and he was very comfortable at slip. As a batsman, Ian benefited from his superb ability as a bowler. He took to batting as the fact that it was a second string to his bow, because he always knew that he could get wickets bowling. So he went in to bat, light-hearted, sometimes frivolously, played extraordinarily well. He would play shots, he would try things out, because he always knew at the back of his mind that he could bowl. And sometimes it came off, and he played exhilarating shots, wonderful innings, and sometimes he made a fool of himself by doing something daft or stupid. But even so, as a batsman, one has to say he gave some extraordinary performances for England. I liked his batting, but I think his batting was helped because he was such a fearsome strike bowler, a truly great cricketer. My wicketkeeper, without doubt, is Alan Knott. In 25 years of playing for England, I've not seen anybody come remotely near his professionalism and quality and standards of wicketkeeping. And I might say in 25 years of playing around the world, I have not seen any wicketkeeper anywhere to come near him. He was a legend in his own lifetime. And the reason being was not the great catches or the stumpings that he made. All wicketkeepers do that. The fact was, he made so very, very few mistakes. And that is the crucial factor in any wicketkeeper. Seamers, spinners, all came alike to him, no problem at all. He was so effective that he gave great confidence to all bowlers. He was ever watchful when he was behind the stump. His concentration was supreme. Alan's batting for England was superb. It was a wonderful bowler. He was able to improvise and get around problems. It could be so frustrating and annoying to bowlers. Spinners would bowl at him. He would play the most clever shots, cutting them off the stump, slogging them and sweeping them to mid-wicket and square leg. And the fast men, just as they thought they got through the top order of the English batsmen, in would come Knotty. He would drive them on the up. He would cut them over the top of slips and gully and make a mockery of the whole game that had gone before him. A wonderful performance. My fast bowlers were John Snow, who had a deceptive, lazy run-up, but bowled at ferocious pace for just a few years in his career. His greatest asset was his control and movement of the ball off the pitch on very, very good batting surfaces. John Snow was not a strong bowler. He couldn't bowl fast day in, day out. He was an occasion bowler. He had to pace himself because he wasn't strong like the bowlers like Truman and Statham. This was part of his problem with officials and some players. Snowy could not bowl flat out day in, day out. He was a showman, or even a show pony. He loved the limelight, he loved to bask in it. But my goodness, what a character and what individualistic skill. When the occasion came, he could bowl as quick or as fast as any of the great bowlers of old. 1971 Australia was his finest moment. 7 for 40 in the second innings against Australia when he destroyed them in 18 8-ball overs. Bob Willis was a fast, aggressive bowler who created bounce from hard pitches. Totally determined and committed professional bowler who did it all over the world for a long period of time. Bob Willis first came into the England team very young with boundless energy and a funny sort of whirling arm action. He later on developed into a determined, aggressive and very accurate fast bowler. For many years, he was England's main strike bowler who thrived on more and more work. His greatest performance for England was in 1981 at Edrich. With his career on the line, he bowled like a man possessed with the devil inside him. He made the ball rear up alarmingly off a length and put the fear of God into the Australians and won the match comfortably in the end for England. In my squad, maybe as a surprise, I would have Geoff Arnold, the Syrian England bowler, because if the test match was played in English conditions, he was the best swing and movement bowler in English conditions that I ever played against in 25 years. For years, Geoff Arnold was the best new ball bowler in England, an attacking, accurate bowler who never wasted the new ball. He could swing it away, cut the ball off the seam, all at a rapid, lively, fast, medium pace. His other great asset was that he could bowl for long spells, a workhorse, his nickname being Horse. So often in Test match cricket, there is one good end to bowl from, with the wind or downhill. But remember, somebody has to bowl uphill and against the wind. Geoff Arnold could do this superbly for long periods, and he could still put the batsman under intense pressure. Underwood was my choice of left-arm spinner for balancing the team, purely and simply because he was a master craftsman, an unusual bowler, strong wrist, strong fingers, bowled the ball much quicker than an orthodox spinner. He almost cut the ball at the batsmen, but he attacked them, gave them no respite, and on certain pitches was absolutely deadly. Derek Underwood came into Test match cricket in 1966, an unusual bowler, bowling left-arm spin over the wicket. He wasn't a success at first, but my goodness, when people told him to go around the wicket and learn to bowl left-arm around, he became a superb performer. He wasn't named Deadly Derek for nothing. He hated batsmen to get any runs at all off him. In fact, he hated it most of all when they sneaked a single. A very, very mean bowler indeed. He had such deadly accuracy, and on wet pitches or uncovered pitches was absolutely unplayable to right-handed batsmen. He could make the ball jump and turn away from batsmen off a length. He was too quick through the air for batsmen to get down the wicket to him, and he was a match winner. People said that he couldn't bowl on flat good pitches. Well, that was absolute nonsense, because he was a master craftsman. He could use variation, slower balls, quicker arm balls, quick through the air. He'd run in the ball to you. He could pressure batsmen in a variation and a variety of ways. A great bowling brain, a privilege to play with him, and occasionally it was a pleasure and not so much of a privilege to fit my skill and wits against him when I was playing for Yorkshire. I wanted an off-spinner in my team for balance, but I also wanted a captain who could handle the players. And I thought about it a long time, and I came up with Raymond Illingworth. Surprise choice maybe, but he can bowl off spin, he can also bat, so he can hold his place in the team on merit, and above all he has a track record as a winning captain. At times we've had problems at Yorkshire when Raymond Illingworth was manager and I was a player. But when I'm discussing cricket, I put any personal feelings on one side and discuss what I feel professionally. Illingworth was good at taking advice from one or two players, then he would sift it and make positive decisions. Once a decision was made, there's no going back. And he'd try and make himself and the team try to make that decision work, and I think that is right. He's liable to get the choice of whether to bat or bowl right, because he's very good and very experienced at that. And once he's done that, I think you're halfway there in getting and retaining the confidence of the talented players amongst you. He does read pitches very well. He's grown up at Yorkshire where we've had to learn to read our pitches that do all kinds of things. Although not being a great test match cricketer in his own right as a batsman, off-spin bowler, he was a pretty good player at test match level. He has got a couple of test match hundreds and some 50s. He has had good performances with the ball from time to time, and I think in that role he can do a job because he's a very good leader, and at the same time he can play a part as off-spinner when you need it, because so often you get an off-spinner in your side for balance who can't bat, and you don't use him much as a spinner. So therefore we've been able to get the balance with Illingworth, that we've got him as an off-spinner when needed, for variation, for balance. If it does turn, he's there to bowl off-spin. He's an excellent fielder at short leg or gully. And then we've got all his tactical awareness and knowledge as captain. I think we've got a pretty good performer amongst the other great players. A good test of this team's ability is if I told you that the best side in the world at the moment are the West Indies, and most people would agree with that, I think that my side would beat them. I think they are mentally stronger and tougher, they are very disciplined, and would beat the West Indies in England or in West Indies. Now, I can't pay that team any higher compliment than that.